All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chow Down with Chow, the only podcast where you can hear the word Chow twice in the title. And today we have a very special edition of Chow Down with Chow. It is the brand new show that I'm bringing to you guys, and it is the MMA Show, the very first edition of a show dedicated to mixed martial arts. For those of you that don't know, I'm a huge MMA fan, have always been, ever since Conor McGregor took on Khabib Nurmagomedov. I know I'm a bandwagon fan, but that's when I started watching the UFC. I don't think I've missed a live event ever since. Um, and with being that there are no sports in this world, sports is a huge part of why I live. I love all kinds of sports, and since that is taken away from us, the one sport that is actually making a lot of headlines is the UFC. And because of that, because the lack of other sports to talk about, I've decided to dedicate entire show to something that I'm very passionate about, which is mixed martial arts, specifically the UFC. And you know, I just want to preface this by saying I don't have any sort of background in the martial arts. I've never trained. I'm not an ex-fighter. I've never been a trainer. I don't even know all the techniques really well. So what I'm primarily going to bring to you guys is a the viewpoints of a fan, simply being a fan of the UFC and how I feel being a longtime fan of the UFC about upcoming events. Specifically, today, the topic that I'm going to be talking about is a preview of UFC 249, the event that was supposed to happen this past Saturday. Shout out to Fight Island. Shout out to Tachi Palace. Um, that's until Dana White got a phone call from, as he said, and I quote, the highest level you can go at Disney, which I took it as meaning the new CEO Bob Chapek called Dana White on the phone and was like, "Yo, Uncle Dana, you know, we know you got the balls to do it. We all know you don't give a fuck about what's happening in the world right now, but you know what? I'm gonna need you to hold off on that, or you're gonna have to make this a DVD and mail it to everyone because you're not gonna be able to produce it over the airwaves of ESPN." That's when the event got postponed, and Dana immediately, not even a week later, announced that it's gonna be happening on May 9th. Presumably when the stay-at-home orders are less strict. Um, and yeah, so today, but before I jump into the card, I'm going to give you my predictions at the end of the podcast. I want to talk about the coronavirus and whether going on with this card is actually the good thing to do. And this topic has been swirling all around uh, the MMA media and MMA fans alike. Um, for me as an MMA fan, I say hell yeah. The Dana White I know is the one who go on tirades, expletive-filled tirades about refs and fighters that gets on his nerves. And that's why I like this sport. That's why I like the UFC. They have the guts to do what other people will never imagine, making a BMF belt, all of this stuff. And I think it's going to be a great idea for them to go ahead and host this card. I think this is what fits in the model of the UFC. It's what fits in the model um, of Ultimate Fighting, of MMA as a sport, and of all the fans. I am cooped up. It's never been this long since I haven't been able to watch a fight. And to be honest, it's driving me crazy. I have a brother at home. I've begun using him to recreate some of my greatest fights. All right? And UFC keep pumping these fights out. They uploaded Michael Johnson and Justin Gaethje the other day, and now, just without prompting, I go up to my brother and I leg kick the shit out of him. because I saw that fight and there's no more fights for me to watch. Anyways, it's driving me fucking up the wall, right? But besides from that, from a public safety perspective, it's obviously not the safest choice. It's not the most sensible thing to do. Um, and I think that we're sort of at a crossroads here. With UFC being on ESPN, I think this is a very crucial decision. Number one, if you want this to be a legitimate sport, as legitimate as you can be. You don't want it to be some sort of niche sport. You want it to be as mainstream as the NBA, as the MLB, as the NFL. I think the right thing to do at the business decision is to stop hosting events. Follow what the other commissioners are doing. Say that we'll never put the risk of our fighters. I would never risk our fighters' safety and health to put on an event. That's a sensible thing. But if that's not what you're going for, you know the fan base of MMA. You want MMA to sort of keep going down this niche path that it will be ultimate fighting. If you don't like it, don't fucking watch it. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go ahead and host this event. We got a colorful commissioner and we're gonna go ahead and fucking do this. We have a private island full of cage fighters and cage fighting. If that's the portrayal that you want to give, I say by all means go ahead and fucking do it. Selfishly, as a fight fan, just host it, Dana. Just host it, Dana. I'm looking straight at you, Dana. Just host it. Just host it. I'll buy the pay-per-view. I will for sure buy the pay-per-view. And after seeing the card, I think the whole world is gonna be watching. The entire fucking world. All right. Have you seen the horse challenge? That shit is garbage. All right. The whole world is gonna be watching when UFC 249 is going to be happening. All right. So without further ado, I want to jump into the main topic of today, which is the actual card, UFC 249. That is, I think at this point, pretty much going to happen in May, on May 9th. So I took the liberty of going through the card, and boy, is it stacked. It is stacked. It is completely stacked. I love every fight from top to bottom. Um, and I'm gonna go through the ones that are already being worked on. I'm gonna talk about those, and I'm gonna give you predictions after each fight that I talk about. So without further ado, let me first pull up the card. And I think you sort of have to start with the main event. We'll go from top down. Tony Ferguson versus Justin motherfucking Gaethje, the most violent man in MMA versus the weirdest guy in MMA. All right. First of all, I'm sure at this point you've all seen Tony Ferguson making championship weight without there being a fight. All right. That is insane. Kevin Lee can't make weight to save his fucking life. Tony Ferguson out here making weight for no fucking reason at all. Alright? That's how weird he is. But that also shows how disciplined he is and how much dedication he's put into this and how much he wants to separate himself from the pack. And I think this doesn't really give him any advantage per se, but it does give him a mental boost to show him that none of these other clowns are willing to make way like he does. Not Habib, not Gaethje. He's the one that's got the discipline to do this. So, boss move, number one. But let's talk about the actual fight. Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje. My prediction is it's going to be a fucking war. War. Go look at Justin Gaethje's past fights. Go look at the Eddie Alvarez fight. Go look at the Dustin Poirier fight. Go look at the Michael Johnson fight. It's free. Go look at it. Or even look at the Edson Barboza fight, the Donald Cerrone fight, the Michael Vick fight. All of his fights in the UFC is going to end violently. Either he's going to get knocked out or he's going to knock your ass out. All right? And If you go look at Tony Ferguson's fight, he fights in a similar style. He pushes the pace. He goes right at you. Punches, combos, elbows, knees. Look at the Anthony Pettis fight. Look at the Donald Cerrone fight. It's 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 two styles that is just gonna clash head on. Justin Gaethje goes forward. He doesn't know how to back down. He doesn't know how to move backwards. But so does Tony fucking Ferguson. All right, it's gonna be a fucking war. It's gonna be a fucking war. I think it's gonna be one of the best fights we've ever seen. If but to be quite frank, if I was in Tony Ferguson's corner, I wouldn't let him take the fight. I don't want to risk it because Justin Gaethje can fuck you up. Fuck you up. You're either going to be out for a long, long fucking time, or you're going to somehow get viciously knocked out, and you're not going to be able to take on Habib. And I would not risk that. You're on a 12-fight winning streak. Why would you fight Justin Gaethje? But Tony doesn't think logically. He made weight. All he's thinking about is, I'm going out and fuck some dudes up. Like he said all the time, it's a round robin tournament to him. And if he believes in himself, he can go out to beat everyone and anyone in the lightweight division. Far be it for me to try and persuade him otherwise. I think it's gonna be a fucking war. And this is what I think will happen. I think Justin Gaethje is gonna push the pace on Tony first with the leg kicks, with the big fucking haymakers thrown at his face. And I think Tony Ferguson is round one, round two, is gonna get knocked out. I think he's gonna get knocked down. I think he's gonna get wobbled. I think he's gonna get almost finished. But I think in rounds 3 and 4, when Tony and his legendary fucking cardio starts kicking in, he'll start push the pace on Justin, and it will end with Tony Ferguson taking Justin Gaethje to the ground and finishing it off there with his trademark submissions. I'm gonna go with a Darce choke by Tony Ferguson or any kind of submission at the end of round 4. And nonetheless, I think it's gonna be one of the best fights the UFC has ever seen. I cannot wait. I cannot wait for Ferguson versus Gaethje. I wouldn't do it if I was Tony Ferguson, but I'm not. I'm not. I weigh. I can't cut 24 pounds in a week. I can't even cut 4 pounds a week. So I'm not Tony Ferguson. But I can't wait for this fight. Thank God for Tony Ferguson. Thank God for what he's willing to sacrifice and put on the line. Because I cannot wait for that fight. And now the co-main event was originally Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas. A great fight. I watched it the first time when Andrade got that unbelievably vicious slam finish against Rose Namajunas. Um, but due to some family issues, Rose Namajunas has pulled out of that fight. So don't think that's going to happen. But reportedly, the thing that's going to step up, the second title fight of the night, is Henry Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz. And originally, Henry Cejudo is going to face Jose Aldo, which I think is a great stylistic matchup for Henry Cejudo. And a lot of people have been criticizing the company's decision to give Jose Aldo a title shot. First of all, it's in Brazil, you dumb fuck. Of course they're going to give Jose Aldo the title shot. They're not going to give Petra Yan the title shot in fucking Brazil and let the white bear go up and fuck up Cejudo. Not going to happen. And also, if you think about it from Cejudo's point of view, it's a great stylistic matchup. He's Aldo's owed. He probably can't deal with Cejudo's wrestling. And Cejudo's on this sort of path to, he crowned himself Triple C. He wanted to call himself the greatest combat athlete of all time. And what better name to put on your resume than Jose fucking Aldo, the best featherweight. Well, some say Max Holloway, but I think Jose Aldo is the best featherweight of all time. It's a great name to put on his resume. It's not that hard of a fight for him, I think. And it's in Brazil. That's win-win. You put that shit on the card in Brazil. But now Jose Aldo's out because of visa issues. And in steps Dominic Cruz, a far more dangerous opponent to Henry Cejudo than Jose Aldo. I think stylistically, Dominic Cruz is fucking awkward. And he's been out for so long, you don't know what kind of shape he's going to be in. It might just surprise you. Um, and if but from Cejudo's point of view, this is sort of the next best thing that you can take. You're not going to take Petr Yan. You're not going to take Aljamain Sterling. You're not going to take Sandhagen. Who else is there? Dominic Cruz. Add that name to your resume. If you're on the path to being the greatest combat athlete, you got to make all your business decisions very wisely. Why would you fight young killers? Destroy Dominic Cruz if you can. Move on. Add that name to your resume. Strengthen your claim before you eventually have to take on real contenders. Not that Dominic Cruz is not going to win. In fact, he's probably my upset pick of the night. But I think in terms of the decision, this is the next best thing for Henry Cejudo. But in terms of the actual prediction, I personally think that would be the upset of the night. Dominic Cruz coming out of nowhere with his wonky fucking footsteps and just sort of walks over Cejudo in I think it's going to be a tight fight. I don't think there's going to be a finish. I'm going to go with a 48-47 unanimous decision win for Dominic Cruz. But then again, I didn't think Cejudo could beat Dillashaw. I didn't think Cejudo could beat Marlon Moraes. And I was wrong in both those occasions. So, fuck me. I can't pick against him. Well, anyways, I'm going to go with Dominic Cruz, UD, after 5 hard rounds with back and forth action. But yeah. And the third title fight of the night, the women's featherweight title, which is the GOAT, Amanda Nunes, versus Felicia Spencer, who has reinserted herself as the number one contender for the belt. In front of Megan Anderson after they both appeared on that same card. Felicia Spencer had an impressive outing last fight. Can't really remember who she fought. Destroyed that woman in, I believe, 2 rounds with vicious ground and pounds. But then again, it's Amanda Nunes. I mean, the last fight between Amanda Nunes and Germaine de Randamie, we sort of saw the chinks in the armor, as you will, on the feet against an elite kickboxer. But Felicia Spencer is not that. It's going to be another wash. I think it's going to be another destruction. I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be a vicious destruction, but a destruction nonetheless. I would say Amanda Nunes by 3rd round TKO, ground and pound, retaining her featherweight title against Felicia Spencer. I really don't see where the featherweight division can go from here. I mean, the only person I can logically think about challenging for the title next is Megan Anderson, and that's going to be destruction too as well, but I guess stranger things have happened. So, we shall see. So, moving on in the card. The headliner on the ESPN portion, Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Boy, I cannot wait for that fucking fight. Oh my god. Someone's going to sleep. I don't know how long. Someone's going to fucking sleep. Alright? I think people underestimate just how fucking scary Francis Ngannou is. Okay? Francis Ngannou starched, and I mean starched, a much younger and better, hungrier Alistair Overeem in like a round or two. Jairzinho Rosenstrike hit a Hail Mary shot in the last 10 seconds of a 5-round main event while being outclassed the entirety of the fight before hitting that shot. And I think that shows you sort of the level difference between the two. I think Jairzinho Rosenstrike is going to be a future title challenger for sure. But I think this is Francis Ngannou's time to strengthen his claim that after DC Stipe 3, it is his time to be the next heavyweight champion of the world. I predict Ngannou knocks out Rosenstrike in 2 rounds. I think it's going to be a fight where everyone's going to be holding their breath. Rosenstrike probably going to hit off some good shots, but I don't think it's his time yet. But his time will come. I think his time will definitely come. He is a hungry and very talented kid. So, best of luck to Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Prove me wrong. Don't think that's going to happen, but, definitely prove me wrong. Knock out Ngannou. But I don't think it's going to happen. So again, Ngannou KO round number 2. And by the way, what a fucking fantastic fight to be the last one on ESPN. That is going to be the fight that is going to propel one of them into massive, massive stardom. I think whoever knocks each other out in that particular fight, either it's Francis Ngannou or Jairzinho Rosenstrike, they are on a rocket ship. They're going to be the next big thing in the UFC, in the heavyweight division, even in Hollywood. I think this fight could be a career maker for both gentlemen. And so, especially with the lockdown, with the quarantine, it is crucial that this fight not be boring for the UFC's sake and be a knockout for one of the gentlemen's sake. Alright, and another fight I do want to talk about is Anthony Pettis versus Donald Cerrone. I mean, both men have verbally agreed to the bout. Both men has been in sort of a slump lately. Of course, Cowboy got knocked out by Conor McGregor, and before that got knocked out by Justin Gaethje, got TKO'd by Tony Ferguson. Not great. Not a great couple of bouts, but if you think about it, he's only lost to the best of the best. Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje are fighting for the interim title. Conor McGregor used to be the number 1 contender. So you can never count Cowboy out. All right. And he's proven with his past fights versus Eli Quinta, Alexander Hernandez, that he is fucking dangerous. He is dangerous. All right. As for Anthony Pettis, I've always thought that his knockout win over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson was kind of a fluke. I think Wonderboy didn't see that Superman punch coming, caught him flat on the fucking chin, just turned his lights out. Good for Showtime. I think Showtime's time is over. As an elite fighter, as a contender, is over. He then, of course, lost to Nate Diaz, which, after his performance versus Jorge Masvidal, I don't think Nate Diaz is the Nate Diaz of old. I don't think he's got that spark in him. I don't think he's got that explosiveness, that world-class boxing. I think he's just a step slower. And the fact that Anthony Pettis lost that fight, then lost just a heart-wrenching fight to Diego Faella, who is sort of on that track where Charles Oliveira's on. just dangerous Brazilians coming back up the ranks. But still, just like how Kevin Lee lost to Charles Oliveira, Anthony Pettis losing to Diego Faella is it's heartbreaking. It's one of those losses that signify that hey, you might need to think about the people you're fighting against and the decision to keep fighting. Do you still want to be a world champion? Is seriously called into question after those losses. But just like how Kevin Lee was in that same position before he knocked out Gregor Gillespie, I think one fight is all it takes for these guys to climb back to where they were. So Anthony Pettis, a huge fight for him, and Donald Cerrone, a huge fight for him if he can somehow pull this win off, prove that all this you threw the fight to McGregor, all this shit is just unfounded, and that he is still one of the best fucking lightweights out there. This fight is incredibly crucial in the careers of both men. From what I see, from the past few fights and their trajectory in their careers, I think Cowboy has the upper hand. I think Cowboy probably will take the win. Um, I predict Cowboy TKO over Anthony Pettis round 3, and I think Anthony Pettis might be on the verge of retiring, to be honest. Um, And I think, depending on how the weight cut goes, this fight might actually be at welterweight instead of lightweight. If you look at the history of both men, there's a history of having trouble cutting down weight for both men. So, it's a fluid decision. I think it's up to the UFC and the management and teams of both fighters to decide whether this fight is going to be 170 or 155. Because I think being at 170 actually put the advantage on Anthony Pettis, as he's shown that the power is still there. But if it's at 155, I think the weight cut drains too much out of Pettis. I think Donald Cerrone is still faster, sharper, more dangerous fighter on the feet or on the ground. And so I predict TKO, Cowboy Cerrone, round 3. All right. So those are probably the fights that I want to talk about on the card that is being worked on, and the fights that I want to give predictions for. But there is some news flashes that I want to talk about, and I sort of want to make this the tradition of every show is to go through some of the top headlines of the week and just sort of give you my quick takes on what I think about these headlines, what I think about the issues on hand. Um, so I'm just gonna browse some websites, read some headlines, give you some quick reactions to them. And the first thing that I want to talk about is this just came in this morning that Lyman Good, the UFC fighter Lyman Good, got diagnosed with the coronavirus. And he was scheduled to face Bilal Muhammad at UFC 249 until he decided to pull out at that time due to undisclosed injuries. But now we have learned that it was because he was dealing with the corona, as I call it. Um, I think this again proves my point that um, going ahead with events at these times, if they were to have UFC 249 at Tachi Palace, was such a reckless decision because you never know who could have the virus. They could be asymptomatic. No matter how many guardrails you put in place, it's really hard to avoid something like this blowing off in your face. I think Dana White knows that, and I think it's a risk that he has thought of. I think it's incredibly reckless, and it does not do the UFC any favors in terms of projecting it as a legitimate sport in the eyes of the public. But like I said, I'm an MMA fan, so fuck them. I want to see my fights. I want to see Ferguson, Gaethje, and Lyman Good seems okay. So, you know, I mean, You gotta take risks to make the big bucks. Uh, as Dana would say, I didn't make it 25 years by not taking risks. So, good shit, Dana. Keep doing you. Make 249 happen. All right. I was in the army. I used to serve in the army during the week when the news came out that UFC 249 was canceled. I was sitting there using my phone, and the last I heard, it was still going on. I was getting ready. I was planning watch-alongs and shit, and suddenly it was canceled, and I was so bummed. I was so fucking bummed. Ruined my week. I'm not gonna lie to you. You don't have a lot of good news when you're in the army. UFC 249 was one of them. But now it's happening again, and now I finally got discharged of my mandatory service. Um, I can't wait for it to fucking happen. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. Okay, so besides that, what other news do we have? I think Dominic Reyes and John Jones has been making a lot of news headlines lately, with John Jones saying he might fight Polish Power Jan Blachowicz ahead of Dominic Reyes. I saw the Dominic Reyes John Jones fight. It was a good fight. I would love to see that again, but in my humble opinion, if you or I were John Jones, why would we want to fight Dominic Reyes again? It is proven that he has what it takes to just end our title reign. I would rather fight someone new, add another name to my resume. So yeah, Dominic Reyes talking about how John Jones is ducking him. Damn right he's ducking you. You would do the same thing, and if you were in his position, maybe you wouldn't, drive off in fucking New Mexico shooting guns, talking to hobos, but you would damn sure not take a fight against a young, hungry lion who has proven that he has what it takes. He has what it takes to beat you. I think that is very apparent. And to be honest, with the recent impressive streak that Jan Blachowicz is on, I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. I watch it either way. A lot of people's opinions are that Dominic Reyes poses the much bigger threat and the much bigger draw for audiences. I don't know if that's true. Put the fight in Europe. Put Jan Blachowicz at the top of the bill. I think it's going to draw crowds. I think it's going to draw a huge crowd. Put it in Poland. I think it's going to be fucking insane. And I love that fight too. I love Polish Power. So either way works for me. Um, I would actually more like to see Jan Blachowicz versus John Jones. I want to see John Jones keep cycling through opponents until someone finally dethrones him and the 205 decision and go on living with these young, hungry lions challenging each other after John Jones has been dethroned. Before that, keep throwing that at John Jones. Keep throwing them. He'll keep beating the shit out of every single one of you doing coke, driving off, talking to hobos. He'll keep doing all of that. It's the mystery and the magic of John Jones. He'll keep doing all that, and he's still the fucking greatest of all time. Another piece of news about John Jones is this whole business with Israel Adesanya. I think Israel Adesanya is way bigger than people think. I think he can actually bulk up and would pose a threat to John Jones. But then again, John Jones took DC down. All right, Calvin Gastelum took Israel Adesanya down. I think John Jones is gonna take Israel Adesanya to the ground, slice him up, dice him up with fucking elbows, and his night is going to be over. I don't think he has what it takes to beat him yet. Um, he's a great fighter, no doubt. I think he has the size and the attributes and the fucking heart and the skills on the feet to beat him. I think all he has to do is strengthen his skills on the ground. I don't think he's there yet. I just don't think he's there yet. I really don't think he's there yet. I mean, if you look at his fight against Whitaker, look at his fight against um, Anderson Silva and Gastelum, they're all primarily standing. Even versus Yoel Romero, Yoel doesn't really use his wrestling. He has never faced an opponent, a high-level grappler that's going to know how to take you down and ground and pound you and control you on the ground. He's just never faced that type of opposition before. And I think his fight against John Jones is going to be a tough night for him. All right, next up, the PFL is rescheduled for next year, canceling their regular season, their playoffs next year. PFL is a hidden gem for all you UFC fans that doesn't really watch any other promotions. If you had to watch one, I'd say it's the PFL. The format's really interesting. There is some really good fighters that are in PFL. Um, Kale Harrison, I believe, is in PFL. Justin Gaethje came out of World Series of Fighting, which is the predecessor of PFL. You know, there's a lot of good talent coming out, and if you just get bored one Friday night or whatever, and there's no UFC to watch, one of those fucking gap weeks, turn on PFL. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised um, about the quality of the matches. And now, I guess the last piece of news is about the former UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley. Um, he just came out and said he wanted a bout on May 9th. He was originally scheduled to fight Leon Edwards in London. That fell through, and now Woodley, being typical Tyron Woodley, turned around and said he never wanted to fight Leon Edwards in the first place. He wants Colby Covington. He wants Colby Covington. Everyone wants fucking Colby Covington. Fucking nerds. That's why he's the best. Because he draws people to watch him. He's actually my favorite fighter. I think Colby Covington is in that realm. Is in that realm of The Rock or Chris Jericho. The the if you watch professional wrestling, you would know. He's sort of the heel that is slowly getting over. If a heel gets hated long enough and hard enough, there comes a point where he becomes the anti-hero. That is sort of goes up, his popularity goes up, and I think Colby Covington is right on that infraction point. Give him the fight against Tyron Woodley. If he wins, he's going to right away call for another title shot, and I think the crowd is going to love him this time. I really think he's at that point where people are starting to like him. I used to hate him, but now I like him because I think he came out and said it's all a gimmick. It's funny. It is funny. It's entertaining, and he adds another layer to the fight, and he's a great fucking fighter. All right. If I'm Tyron Woodley, Leon Edwards and Colby Covington, I think, pose about the same level of threat, and Leon Edwards, for some reason, just couldn't get over. For the life of him, just couldn't get over. So don't take that fight. Take the fight against Colby Covington. Or ask for the fight against Colby Covington. That might be your fastest way to a title shot. But in my opinion, I think Tyron Woodley's doing all this Hollywood shit. I think his time is over. I don't think he'll ever fight for a championship again. And I mainly is going to tune in because I want to see what Colby Covington does to him and what Colby Covington is going to say in the weeks leading up to and after the fight. So I wouldn't mind that. You add Covington Woodley to the May 9th UFC 249 card. I will give you all my money, Dana. I will give you all of it. I will give you all of it, Dana. Please, make it happen. Make it the most stacked card that anyone has ever seen. Alright, Dana? Um, yeah, so that about ends it with the news update segment. Like I said before, this is the first edition of ChowDownChou, the MMA show. Um, I originally planned on making it an hour long, but there's not that much happening, so we sort of fell short with the things to talk about. So, I guess I'll plug the show. All right, Chow Down with Chow is the podcast starring yours truly, Derek Chow, updated weekly. I'm thinking of doing an MMA show every 1 to 2 weeks and doing a sports show once sports comes back up every week, and then do random talk segments where I have interviews with guests and talk about various things that interest you. And check out the podcast. It's going to be released in the video version on the ChowDownChou YouTube channel. And of course, there's going to be the audio podcast available for download in whatever platform you choose to download it on. So check it out. Uh, Again, if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, there's links in the description. Also, check out our sister channel, Random Gaming, which is just me playing video games. I might as well stream it if I'm playing it. Um, so check that out. Subscribe to both. Hit a like on both. Share the podcast. Yeah, and that about wraps it up. I will see you next week. All right. Chow out.